Welcome. Appreciate your time. On behalf of the mayor's office, we welcome the post-budget mayoral town hall representing districts 1 and 2. First, I'd like to acknowledge first district councilman Mr. Kobe Owens. And I do not know if she's made it or is present yet, but also like to second district council Shanae Dark. I'd like to welcome all of our at-large council members. I'd like to also acknowledge all of our city council staff, President Congo, as well as the chief of staff, Mr. Elijah Simmons. Also like to welcome our directors, commissioners, and their deputies from the city of Wilmington. Thank you for being here. And finally, I'd like to welcome all of the NPC leaders, all of the neighborhood associations, and community associations that are present. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for sharing this tonight. I'd like to now introduce to you our host. I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director of the Wilmington Police Athletic League, Executive Director, Mr. Chris Cornell.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for that. We'll make sure both of them work. Good evening. Welcome to the Power of Wilmington. I am Christopher Purnell, Executive Director here at Power of Wilmington. We'd like to thank you guys for showing up tonight for this first town hall meeting in the city of Wilmington. We'd like to thank Greg and Mayor Carney's office for allowing Power of Wilmington to host it. And we will also like to thank all dignitaries for coming out. District. Mr. Kobe Owens and PAL's board president. So with that being said, we are excited about this town hall. We are glad to have it here, and we hope everything goes well and everybody gets to participate. To the PAL of Wilmington, please, we have a table in the back, as well as the city of Wilmington has a table for resources, and please make sure that you're getting all the information that you need. And at the end of this, we will be at the table to answer any questions to help anybody as well with any resources that you need in North Wilmington on this side of town. So without further ado, we would like to introduce and welcome our Mayor, City of Wilmington, Mr. John Carney.
Thank you very much. Chris, do I need a microphone? I don't think so. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to thank Chris in particular. I started my day out today with a tour of this facility. I knew it pretty well over the years because my two sons, who are now adults, 30 and 28 years old, when they were coming up, we were out here all the time playing in all the various basketball leagues that the city put on, that the PAL put on, and it was a great experience for all of us. One of those kids, my nephew, who grew up in the 2nd District, is playing for the Minnesota Vikings, and so he's one of our proud local kids, and started his basketball career right out here on these courts. The PAL provides other services than just athletic programs. They have a great early childhood program here, and we met all the little ones. They were as cute as could be. They have youth development programs, housing counseling programs. Was very impressed with what they're doing and their plans to expand across the street with the facilities, if you've seen what they've already done, and a new building that they plan for across the street as well. I was fortunate as your governor to be able to direct some federal funds that came to our state for those projects, although there's still a lot to be done. It's great to be here with your 1st District Councilman. He's off to a strong start just from right around the block here. And James Spadola, where he is, and a large congressperson. Whoa, that's giving you a big, man, I don't know if that's a promotion or not, but anyway, we've got lots of folks that are here representing your city government, so as questions come up, we will call on their expertise and knowledge to answer any of those questions. The primary purpose of this town hall meeting tonight is to present our budget for the next year. There's some really difficult decisions that were made along the way within that budget. We'll walk through that. It builds on things that have been happening over the last really decade or so across the city and really tries to focus on how we can improve the quality of life in all our neighborhoods, from the far west side to the south side and Southbridge, all the way here to the north side and east and west. We have a wonderful city. It's really got great parks. We had some visits yesterday in the 2nd District. Councilwoman Darby's not with us, but we had a great foot tour. We must have had, I don't know, 25 city employees and myself, and we went around, looked at the parks, some of which, like Love Park, has recently been done. East Lake Park, which is on the drawing board to get upgraded as well, and all the different challenges on North Market Street, on Concord Avenue, all the way across the 2nd District. We're up here now in the 1st District. Do we have any 2nd District people here? I saw a couple folks. Thank you for turning out. That's my old residence, not my old residence, where I live today, right on 19th Street, behind, catty corner behind the synagogue, if you know where that is. So we're going to start first. Again, it is fundamentally about our budget, some of the transition priorities that came out of that committee. The first slide kind of lays out our priorities, and it starts with fiscal responsibility, right? We can't have an effective, functioning city unless we take care of your tax dollars well, spend them accordingly on our priorities, make sure those expenditures are responsible, and that they really address the things that I heard from all of you as I knocked on your doors during the campaign. And so for me, it starts with, okay, what is the revenue that you have to build your budget on? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And that's why some of the other things like supporting small businesses and workforce are so important, because we allow and enable businesses to be successful. That means more tax revenue for the city that we can provide for important public safety, police and fire services, as well as our parks and other services provided by the city. So it starts with that, starts with revenue, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We want to fix up roads and vacant properties, and all over this city, I've seen where 1 or 2 vacant properties on a block or in a neighborhood takes down the whole neighborhood. And everybody that I'm looking at is shaking their hands, shaking your heads, because you know what I'm talking about. And we have good programs to do that. I'll talk about our neighborhood stabilization program, which is geared specifically for that. One of the things I noticed as I was campaigning up here and in the drive from 19th Street up here tonight, Delmarva Power has all the roads torn up in this neighborhood. Do they? Am I right about that? Every single one. So I've been on, where's our Public Works Director? Miss Williams, stand up so everybody can see who you are. This woman leads our Public Works Department. It's their department that's responsible for making sure that Delmarva Power does their job. And then we ultimately, because they weren't doing such a great job, we, the city, are going to come in and finish the job by doing that last pavement. Now, almost every street from here to 19th Street is torn up, right? Am I right about that? All around Haynes Park and all of it. It's terrible. So we're going to fix it, right? She's got her thumbs up. And you can see that that's a high priority. Obviously, the most important thing for every neighborhood in our city is to make sure that they're safe. And that's, we've got our police chief here. He's doing a tremendous job. Chief, if you would stand up so everybody can see you. Chief Campos. We started off the year on a pretty good foot. Recently, we've had some shootings, as you know. It's the worst possible thing. A mother and a father and a family and a community should not have to mourn a 16-year-old boy that's shot on the streets in our city. Shouldn't happen. And we've got to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it's not just a law enforcement responsibility, but fundamentally that's a part of it. And all the things that we talk about with respect to neighborhood stabilization and helping families in our city is geared to that end, to make sure that we have strong families and strong neighborhoods all across our city. So, they want me to use it? Oh boy, I don't know. It's going to be, all right. One of the things that and Jim Simmons is with us tonight. Jim has been working with me as your governor, and he worked as the principal of Mount Pleasant. Jim, stand up so everybody knows who you are. And he and Kevin Kelly, you all know Kevin Kelly, I'm sure. They've been working with Parks Department to try to figure out how can we use after school, weekend, and summer time to help our children do better in school, right? We know that we need to make sure that our third graders are all reading like grade level, and we know that most of them aren't. And so if you can't read proficiently by third grade, you're not going to be able to learn the rest of the way through your academic career. You learn how to read from preschool to third, and then you read to learn the rest of the way. And so we need to do it. It's not our responsibility, although I intend to be very involved and very engaged in the city of Wilmington educational issues, but we can enhance the work of the schools by making sure that our after-school, weekend, and summer programming helps them with that effort. Are you sure this is better than me just talking without the microphone? Okay, so I'm gonna put it down. So these are our priorities, and these are what we're gonna focus on tonight. It's about our budget. So let's go take a look. So here's the budget, $200 million. It's a little different than my $7 billion state budget, but it's still every dollar there is an important one. It's a modest 4% increase from last year. And one of the things that drove my decision there was to keep our property tax revenue flat. Why? Because we're going through property reassessment. And just based on that new assessment of your property, people are going to see their taxes go up just because the value of your property has gone up. The value of your property going up is a good thing, except when it comes time to pay taxes. And then it's not so good. And I can tell you, we are working with Newcastle County, whose job it was to do the reassessments for the whole county, to make sure that they get it right in Wilmington. And I can tell you that there are some neighborhoods whose assessments are higher than they should be. What's the measure? The measure is what could your house be sold on the free marketplace, right? So if you were to sell your house tomorrow or sometime soon, how much would you put it on the market for? That was what the guy asked me when I went in to contest my assessment, which originally was for $480-some thousand. There's no house in my neighborhood that sold for that amount. And those of you who live down where so then my next door neighbor, like a year and a half ago, that house, and we're connected. We're like a mirror image of each. It's a duplex. Mine's here, his is there, and it's sold for $265. Like $480-some to $265. Well, wait a minute. So I contested it. I brought his information in. I talked to him about those projects that I've been talking about getting to for the last 20 years, and I haven't got to them, so it goes to the condition of the property. Yeah, that wasn't pleasant. The only time that the fact that I didn't get done a project was something good for me. It helped lower that. So if your assessment, the time has expired to contest it this year, but if your new assessment is higher than what your house could sell for on the open market, you need to go in there and appeal that assessment. And I can tell you, you may not have looked at it yet closely enough, but when those tax bills are going to come, you're going to see So I said, revenue neutral, no more property tax revenue, because I knew that even with that, some people were going to see their taxes go up a lot. Not go up a lot, but a lot of people are going to see that happen. And the other factor is the commercial properties across the city are going down. And so to have revenue neutral, somebody's got to pick up that reduction, and that's the residential properties. So that's where we started from that. Here's just a summary of the thing. So the existing, up till now, the existing assessments were 1983. So my property in 1983 was $50,500. Are you giving me another microphone? All right, okay. So 1983, $50,500. The first one that came in was $483, and then they dropped it to like $350 something, which is still high for not my neighborhood, but I don't think I get another, shot at the ball on that one, right? I got people agreeing with me here in the front row. But if yours is higher than what you could sell for, you need to pay attention to that and appeal next year. So we've lowered our tax rate 78% because all the values went up, so the tax rate had to go down. But again, because of the commercial values going down as well, some people's taxes are going to go up. We are putting together a tax support program for low-income residents who just won't be able to cover that increase in their taxes, and we're working on the details of that. But clearly, that should be a priority for them, and I know my members of council agree with that. Okay, what's next? Next is just to give you a sense as to what drives our budget and what's important. So you can see the wage tax is upwards of around, that's $80 million there. And you can see the property tax at roughly around $45 million. So it's a little jumpy up and down. It's flattened out because the commercial properties were challenging their assessments. We've lost some revenue there recently, but our budget assumes that that's revenue neutral. So no increase in revenue. The rate's going to go down, all the values going up. The wage tax is so important because if we're going to continue to be a strong and viable city, we have to be growing our commercial centers like Market Street, our jobs. We got to have more jobs in the city so people are paying taxes and supporting our government. And so when people say, well, you shouldn't be focused on that, or you shouldn't be focused on the downtown or whatever, those people who come in and they work downtown, and by the way, a lot of them are working at home now, and it's hurt us. The work from home fad has really hurt us because if you're somebody doesn't live in the city, you come in only now 3 days a week, you take credit for those days you're not working, and that hurts our revenue picture. So wage tax is the highest, biggest thing, and property tax next. A couple years ago, if we go to the next slide, you're going to see you heard all this debate about Delaware being the corporate capital of the country and all that. This is why it's important to us. You can see this is about $12 to $14 million because we're the county seat where those incorporations are made. And we get corporate filing fees. You can see when I was governor, we increased those filing fees almost $6 million a year. And that's enabled, this money right here from corporate filing fees, all this stuff you've been reading in the paper, has enabled us to keep your taxes down and we can continue to function and fund our police department, fire, parks, and all the things. So these two are because of that center of excellence that we have in Delaware as a corporate capital, both county seat and corporate filing fees. And these, of course, have been a big boost since about FY23. Okay, so what's next? So the biggest driver of our budget is on the personnel side. And as it turns out, every government, every employer right now is struggling to find workers, right? We have several hundred vacancies in state government. We have a police force with an employment number that's about 40 more than what we have. Is that right, Chief? He's shaking his head yes. And we have 11 that are in our academy now. 10. So we have 10 in our academy. We have about 40 vacancies. And this is not unusual. When I was in state government, we had several thousand vacancies. And that, first of all, it impedes your ability to do work. The only good thing about it, particularly for the state, it enables our fund. If you're not spending money on those, paying those salaries, you're saving money from your budget. And at the end of the year, you'll see, well, it was on the first slide, you'll see that we end the year with a net surplus. That money goes into what's called a fund balance. It enables us to make one-time investments in the kind of neighborhood stabilization things that aren't recurring. So we could come out, one of the things that we could do, and we've had a lot of talking about it, is fixing up roads, fixing up sidewalks. In our tour of the 2nd District, there were so many sidewalks that were broken, trees had lifted up the concrete and all that kind of thing. So those kind of little things that are annoying in your neighborhood, if we have these kinds of one-time revenues in a fund balance, that's when you can make those investments. The last mayor appropriately made investments in bringing Insight into the city. Insight is going to bring initially about 400 or 500 jobs, high-paying jobs, right into those empty buildings on Rodney Square. And so they're going to help all of us pay for our budget with the wage taxes that they're going to pay. So there was a one-time investment there, which council supported, and which is going to enable us to have a stronger budget than ever before. So growing that employment base is helpful for all of us in the city. The major increase in the budget is our city employees, obviously, with their annual increases. We do, as you can see at the bottom, we have 101 vacant positions, 35 in public works, 46 in the police department, and we have 10 in the academy. You can also see another big, and this is consistent in every government, or is healthcare costs. At the state, it's a way bigger number because the state pays half of the Medicaid expenses in a given state. But for us, it's just the healthcare for city employees. Okay. All right. So on the sewer and water side, how many people have been living here for longer than 10 years? How about longer than 15 years? How about longer than 20 years? I got my hand up still. How about longer than 30 years? So you know, as I do, that we've gone through a period in recent years where there's been smaller increases in the water sewer fund, and we get the bills more regularly than 30 years ago. No, it makes me mad too. But here's, every month, it seems like every month. It is, that's why it seems like it's every month, because it is every month. But here's the deal. And it was something that I struggled with this year in the budget, because knowing that people are already experiencing increased costs, and because of the reassessment, people are going to see property taxes going up. I didn't want to raise the water and sewer rates. But here's the choice you have. You can do it a little bit each year, or you can do it a lot every couple of years. And here's the reason. The reason is our city's old, and the water and sewer systems are old. And therefore, they have to be refixed. That's not a word, is it? Refixed? Where's that's doubly fixed. Fixed and then refixed. You know what I mean. Replaced. Sister Alma Gertrude would be very upset with me right now. But we've got to replace the water and sewer lines because we got raw sewage running into the Brandywine, running into the Christina, because our sewer systems are combined, right? So when it rains, that's when they're most vulnerable, because all the rainwater goes into the sewer lines and brings all the sewer into the Brandywine. That's not a very pleasant thing to think about. And so we got to do ways to treat that, to replace the various sewer lines and all of that, as well as most of the plant is actually paid for by the biggest user, which is Newcastle County. So anyway, I bit the bullet and said, okay, we're not going to do 9%, but we'll do 6% for that, and just a little bit. It's only $4.66 for a typical customer a month. So if we're going to replace all this stuff, we're going to clean up our Brandywine and clean up the rivers. I figured that this was better than all this, every other year, every third year, you get a bigger number. So that's where we are with this. And by the way, we have Public Works. Do we have anybody from Water and Sewer? They do a tremendous job, by the way. They really do. And I don't see other than just you would. All right. So the second really big thing in this budget is the fact that we need to get back into the ambulance business. Those of you who have been around, like I have, might remember that the Wilmington Fire Department used to provide ambulance service for the city. And probably, 10 or 15 years ago, maybe more than that, they started contracting it out to a third-party contractor. And ultimately, a couple years ago, we ended up with St. Francis, who got into the ambulance business. And they got into the ambulance business. I used to be on their development board because they were losing business. And so they thought if they were in the ambulance business, people would get in the ambulance and they would come to St. Francis instead of Wilmington Hospital. Well, if you have ever ridden in an ambulance, you needed an ambulance, they'll ask you, where do you want to go? Well, most people say, I want to go to Wilmington Hospital, right? So it didn't work for them for that perspective. And they weren't able to make it work for them from an operational perspective. First, they hired too many people, and they weren't able to recoup by billing for those services. And so you probably remember the last mayor and council had to put in, I think, $3.5 million to the budget to cover what St. Francis wasn't able to do. So going in, the first day I arrived, I knew this is going to be an issue. I'm unsure which way it was going to go. So we looked at, could we do it with some other private provider, and nobody is interested in doing it. So we decided we're going to do it within the Wilmington Fire Department, hire more people. Most of our firefighters now are certified, thank you. I'm having trouble with my words tonight. They're certified as both firefighters and EMTs. You need to be an EMT and have that training to ride the ambulance. So and by the way, the one thing that St. Francis was doing better is they were billing and collecting those reimbursements from private insurance, from Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicaid finally increased the reimbursement rate to make it equal with Medicare. And so that helped St. Francis a lot. And so now we're halfway through the year, and we're way up. The city has paid less money to support St. Francis than we had in their budget. So we're going to go through a transition now, from now to the end of the year, to bring our people on board. The city bought 5 ambulances a couple years ago, expecting that this might happen. So they're pretty ready to go, and they're fired up to do it. We do have what's called mutual aid, and have had it for as long as I can remember, where if the city ambulances are in service, so they're taking somebody to the hospital or transporting, then we get support from Tallyville, Brandywine 100. You've seen their ambulance, I'm sure, in the city. Well, they're doing mutual aid. Most of the time, They get in the ambulance, they're on their way into the city to pick somebody up, and then they get called off because the city ambulance frees up and they go on that run. So it's a little bit of a complicated system, but it's redundant so that you get an ambulance when you need one, and you have a lot of backup. So that's one of the biggest. You can see we've got some startup costs there of $4 million, but we are also projected to collect $2.5 million from medical billings, what I talked about earlier. And so ultimately, full year, it should be a break-even proposition. That's the goal. So without a positive or negative effect on the budget. This year, there will be an impact. So with this and the other things, this was also the biggest thing on the spending side in this particular budget because of the change. All right, just some other things, investments in public safety. We have significant resource for the whole promotional process, both in police and fire. We have $150,000 for scheduling software that helps us, the police, schedule in a more efficient way, protective gear for the firefighters. And then we have something that we funded during COVID, which has become very successful in Amber Alerts and all kinds of different calls where we have a license plate recognition software that does what that suggests. It recognizes license plates coming in and out of the city. And so if something happens on the north side and you know that this particular car was somehow involved, you can tell when it passed over, through one of those software recognitions. So the grant, it was originally funded under a grant, and now this is just picking up that software in the city budget. Okay, what else? So we talked about neighborhood stabilization, and I also talked about the fund balance. So this is a really good way. This is something that members of council really came to us and said, we need this kind of help. It's for all the kinds of things that we talked about in terms of streets, trees, sidewalks, anything that you could think about that's kind of one of those things in your neighborhood that's an irritant in some way or another. We also have ways to do that on the housing side in terms of code enforcement and that type of thing. And it's one of those things where you can put money from your fund balance and not necessarily have to keep funding it year after year after year. So making an investment in basic infrastructure really is what it boils down to. Neighborhood infrastructure is what I would call it. On the tour with Councilwoman Darby, we saw all kinds of things that would be eligible for this pot of money. And we can make sure that it's spent well, and it'll be a lot of it will be based on what complaints that you enter into our system and that you raise with members of council, be they district councilmen or council people at large. The clean teams have been tremendous. And one of the issues with how many people think the clean teams they've been awesome. And I know Larry's been involved in it. So is that a Cowboys star you got on you? Now wait a minute. Did the Philadelphia Eagles just win the Super Bowl or what? And he come walking in here with a Cowboy star on himself? All right. All right. So one of the things that bugs the heck out of me is trash and litter in the neighborhoods and on the corridors, right? It's terrible. The number one thing on yesterday was that. Like right there, Vanderver and Concord and Market, all of that, there's stuff all over. But these guys, what's the date? What's the date on the cleanup? April 12th. April 12th. You're already into it. Awesome. Like we're going to clean up the whole city. We got a beautiful city. We keep our city clean, enhances your property values. It makes life so much nicer, and it makes people that are, not acting right, that maybe they act right a little bit, So these people do it. And we've been expanding those teams. And then, of course, I just love our parks. I mean, I think they're tremendous. We got great green space. Like, Brown Burton Winchester Park is one of the most beautiful parks that we have in the city. I mean, it's huge, and it's great. And then we have smaller ones like Love Park and East Lake and all the different ones. And so this is resources, and then we're going to bring the educational component into it. And I think it'll really, really lift things up. Okay, so here we go. These are some of the examples. Speakman Park, that's kind of connected to Brown Burton, right? Love Park, Love Park, and East Lake. Now, East Lake, did anybody turn out? Yeah, when was it? Last night? When was the?
Last night.
Was it last night? So last night, so they have a design plan for East Lake Park. It's going to be much like, it looks, Leonard, when you say it looks more like One Love Park, right? Very similar. Have a splash pad there. 76ers are helping with a new basketball court. It's going to be really lovely, and it needs it. Okay. So I mentioned the support for our young people, the youth career development effort. I believe that we can use those young people, again, to help with the younger still people with respect to their reading and everything. And we talked to a group today that might help out there. We're expanding additional money for the adult and child food program and summer service program, additional money to expand summer and year-round employment for the young people, and then, as I said, the after-school programs. I really think that we have a real opportunity to help our schools and families with our children, making sure that they can read on grade level and do math proficiently in middle school. What else? I think that's the last slide. Okay. Not my favorite subject. But we think we have a plan. It's been to council. I'm going to look for my council members for nods, right? It's been to council. Essentially, it was permitted areas are the green. It's essentially manufacturing zones, right? So it's mostly east of the city, all the red. Whoa, did I touch something? So this area would be, this is the riverfront. It would be available by permission, special permission. And then in the manufacturing zones, by the zoning. And most of the residential area. This is what we heard from members of the public. And so it's gone initially through the Planning Commission, and then I believe it goes to council next, right? So, okay, here it is. Council meeting on April 16th. The proposal has been approved by the City Planning Commission. And so if you have an opinion on it, please come to the meeting on the 16th. I think that's it. There might be one. Okay. Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. Okay, I got one right here. She's got.
I'm a resident of Wilmington, Delaware. First and foremost, thank you, Mayor, for your continued service in the state of Delaware and your dedication to the city of Wilmington. Thank you. In regards to housing, more specifically, the concern of the rising rents many renters in our city are experiencing. Over the past decade, thousands of rental units have been added to our city. However, we haven't really seen a decrease in rent. In fact, rent has gone up higher. I understand you are unsupportive of rent stabilization laws, which would limit the amount of rent landlords could raise the rent each year. So my question is, what is the plan for renters who are self-sufficient, but living in a city whose average median income is significantly below the nation's average median income? Those renters who are paying more than half their income towards rent, those renters who are not eligible for assistance and subsidies which, assistance and subsidies is about 10% of renters, and we're like half of renters in the city. Renters represent over half of the residents in the city.
Right.
Where do those renters go when their rent is rising too high for them to maintain self-sufficiency? And if there is no plan to assist these renters, what kind of impact would that be on like your neighborhood stabilization or quality of life?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a great question. It's a really hard issue and it's really expensive. And so at the state level, the state relies primarily on federal funding. Obviously, you'll listen to the news and watch the TV. That's not such a great thing right now. During the last, certainly the last 5 or 6 years, we've had considerable resources for housing generally, right? In my opinion, given the challenges that we face, the needs for neighborhood stabilization, the best investments that we can make at the city level and with both state and federal money is with the neighborhood stabilization approach, with funding the land bank, because they get bigger bang for their buck. It's mostly for first-time home buyers, which I know is not part of your question, but it's all connected, right? If you can move a renter into to be a home buyer for the first time, then you're opening up a spot. My opposition to the rent control, which is the way it's described most places, is it just doesn't work across the country. New York City, Philadelphia, all these places that have it, what it does is it constrains the supply. People get it, pass it on to their relatives. It goes on and on and on, and it doesn't ultimately help the people that we both want to help out. So given the limited resources, I think the best investment is in a program like just this week, I took a tour with Woodlawn, thank you. And Woodlawn has about 500 to 1,000 units across the city. And what they've been doing, if you go on the east side now, look at Bennett Street, from like 9th all the way up, they've done whole blocks. And that's a mix, by definition, of rental units and home ownership units. I just think that that's where we get and it's the added benefit of everybody else in the neighborhood. I can remember I was walking with Kevin Kelly on the west side on Linden Street, and we ran into this woman, and she was fit to be tied. And she was running me up one side and down the other. And you know how that can go. And so I was patiently listening, and she was upset because she moved into the neighborhood, she said, 30 years prior, and was the first African-American to live on that block. And she said now she's the only homeowner on that block. And she was talking about the effect that that had. My point is not to denigrate anybody who's a renter, but to say that that's our best opportunity to help home buyers, particularly those in the first time. When we do these projects, we make sure that they hit a price point that's affordable. Now that's, affordable's in the eyes of the beholder, right? But basically you're talking about affordable now, Ray, is what, 200 to 250, something like that? It depends on the person, and it depends on the subsidy. So if we're going to subsidize all these units, I want to get as much bang for the buck. That's, I guess, what it really boils down to. And I want to get the added benefit of the uplift of the neighborhood, right? And you've taken a vacant property. Think about what Bennett Street used to look like. It was all boarded up for the longest period of time. Same thing with those houses on 8th Street across from Bancroft. So we're an aging city, not just the infrastructure, but the housing stock And the best way to both create first-time, and one of the things that's also happened, we pushed the minimum wage up from like $7.50 an hour to $15 an hour. Now that still leaves you a little bit short, but if we can help on the workforce side and train people up to take some of these vacant positions, it empowers them hopefully to move up the housing chain. I hear your concern. I share your concern. I just feel like the best place to invest is in these programs that are neighborhood stabilization. I have one here, and then I'm going to go back to my friend with the purple hat.
I have
Two questions?
One, I have a concern about the trash. I know we used to have garbage picked up twice a week, correct? And I understand if there's an issue with having to have someone come out twice a week, then at least be able to have twice a week in the summer months. Because what happens is the trash stinks really bad, and they have magnets coming out of the trash cans, and it's really bad. There's a lot of magnets and it's coming out of the trash can. Now, if they miss your trash that week, and you gotta wait till a whole nother week, that's gonna force me to put the trash at the corner, in that corner can. Well, who wanna pick that up with all the magnets in it?
Right.
That's a real issue that we really need to take care of.
Okay.
Because first of all, we never was able to put the trash out front at first. We had to keep our cans in the back. And you would get a fine if we had them out front. So, that was an issue. We got used to that, but at least let us have 2 times a week in the summer months. I don't see what's wrong with that.
Probably, yeah, probably.
The same people who
The
pay
cost.
for it now, they don't have that many workers.
Bless you.
You got a whole lot of summer kids coming.
Okay. Well, we'll see what we can do with those kinds of things. I know I think it's a simple matter. It just costs a lot of money. Doubles your personnel costs.
But the environment smelling like that, it shouldn't.
I know.
Okay, can I do my other question?
One more
right
question,
now?
yeah, then I have
Okay. The
a
other
couple
question
people.
I have is about the dollar houses. Do you still have that program going where you can buy a house for $1 to prove that you can fix it up?
We don't, I'm looking, Ray, we don't have dollar, buy a house for $1 programs.
I mean, what is the program about there? Do you have
Yeah.
a program?
So the program is essentially the land bank picks up buys these houses that are vacant, dilapidated, gets them for as cheaply as they can. They turn them over to a small contractor or to the ones I just talked about if it's a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
And then they make an investment, and that builder sells it at a below market rate. So the land bank takes the hit on that. The builder gets the profit. It's like a built-in profit. And it's a good program. You lose money on every transaction, but you get a whole block that gets fixed up on that investment. That's why I support it. And by the way, it also helps with women minority contractors that are small and can do these one. No, I didn't see anybody. So I had a couple over here, yes. Right here, this lady right here. Oh no, I'm sorry. I know the purple hat. Yeah, I said purple hat.
The city is not doing a good job on slum landlords. Could they put more in the fund and respond? Because when you call a complaint, they don't respond. And most of the problem is slum landlords.
Where's our
So can they go back?
commissioner? Come on, commish. We're gonna introduce you to this whole crowd. Come on over.
They don't show up.
It just so happens. We got the Commissioner of License and Inspection here, who's also a prior fire marshal, Wilmington Fire Department. The question was, we don't do a good enough job on landlords.
Just
introduce
Call
yourself.
and complain, you don't respond.
Okay, so can you hear me? All right, so I want to introduce myself. My name is Gabriel Pavone. I'm the previous Fire Marshal Carney, the new Commissioner of License Inspection. I hear you. Because of that, soon in the next couple of weeks, we'll be implementing a new task for rental inspectors, right, that will solely deal with landlords, absentee landlords, also vacant properties. So the department is going to be divided into smaller task force where inspectors will be focusing on vacant properties, identifying vacant properties early to get them on the list early and start working with those owners to kind of turn over those properties. The team from the rental team will be working on identifying unlicensed, unregistered rental properties and making sure that they are being rented and making sure that they're staying on the rotation as they're required by city code. So that is one of my biggest concerns. That is something we're definitely going to be working on. And identifying not just that landlord that owns that one property, right? It's linking that landlord to all of their properties and making sure that all of their properties, because what I've learned is that if you have 10 properties, the behavior that you're doing over on the west side, most likely is happening at your other properties. So once we link them, we're making sure that they're coming in, that we register, and that we're also inspecting. So because of that, that is starting in the next couple of weeks. So I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
All right, hold on, I got, did that answer your question?
Yes, I
Okay.
have one of your cards before you leave.
Yes.
Yes, this lady right here is, had a question. Go ahead. Thanks, Ken. The complaint department is open, so,
Okay. Speaking about the trash.
yes.
How much time is, I can go in the better neighborhoods, I'll say like that, the suburban neighborhoods, and I've actually followed the trash trucks to see how they do it. And it's usually just one person. And the trash is done so well and so neatly, and even if they drop it, they pick it up. I, every morning, for years, have got up early to get my husband off of work. So I see when the trash trucks come. And to have them they tell us with the recyclable, you can put your bottles and stuff in, but to have them to take that truck, that trash can, dump it, and know that all this is on the ground, and our driveway and alley, and they do not pick it up. I actually went there, and I told them about it. And it's sad because we do the right thing, we do what they say do, and the fact of the matter is that it's supposed to be two separate things. They complain, I haven't gotten a citation for, I didn't have my trash, my husband didn't have trash right. But yet, it's one day for recycle, one day for regular trash. But I've actually watched them take everything in one day.
Okay.
But what happens is the truck is so full, it's spilling.
Right,
And
yeah.
then we have to go out there and, it's blowing all over the place,
Yeah.
or I've got to clean it up. I just feel like,
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. I think you're right.
I do call and they don't.
Okay.
Okay?
That gentleman right there, and then this lady. Okay, this lady, then you. Okay.
I am Dolores Green from Speakman Park, Colby, Owen. It represents your name, Speakman Park first. I'm concerned about we need a lot to be done at Speakman Park, a lot. The table has a hole in it. The tables need fixing, the sidewalk need fixing, and when they move the tree to the street, bumping up the sidewalk.
Okay, we'll go out and take a look at it.
And not only that, when there's a lot that needs to be done in Speakman Park.
Okay.
The trees, they're supposed to remove 9 trees, they do another tree replacement. And we need the tables need done. And put some more trash cans out. What happened was somebody dropped a cart, a push cart, broke the cart. Get out there and clean the street.
God bless you.
Dolores Green, get out and clean the street.
She's got one more thing. Come on. You don't mess with this lady. I know that. What are you talking about? go ahead. Right, right.
Glad to meet you, and we can get some work done.
I'm gonna come out there and take a look. This gentleman right here. Okay, this guy's been waiting though. You could talk to me afterwards.
I have a concern.
Oh, ho.
I have a concern and I have a question. And I don't see my council person. Oh, right. Ms. Darby.
I texted her, she said she wanted to come.
Okay, so I don't want to throw her under the bus, but here's my issue. So here's my issue. I live in the 2500 block of Washington. My neighbor relocated, so they sold their property. Whoever bought the property, I don't know, never met the gentleman. However, my wife and I kept noticing probation and parole coming to this house. So I told her, I said, something's wrong. So I looked on the sex offender website. So right now I have 7 sex offenders living next door to me. 4 of them are tier 3 sex offenders. So now the value of my property, when we talk about the assessments, the value of my property has decreased tremendously. So I tried to do the right thing. I contacted my council person. And so I know this wouldn't happen in Brandywine 100, and it would not happen in West over here. Okay, so how did this happen? How does this property turn into a transitional housing with 7 sex offenders in a neighborhood where I got grandkids, there's neighborhood kids, and I can't get any answer.
Yeah, let's talk about it afterwards, or I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Well,
But we can help you find out.
But I get a notice about a building around the corner that they want to turn, a garage they want to turn into a apartment building. So we get a public notice for that. But we get absolutely nothing telling me that you're moving 7 sex offenders into my neighborhood.
That doesn't sound right. Thank you. All right. We have over here, yes.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor?
Good.
My question is, the city changed the payment on the water bill, so we paying every month, right? But it looks like every month that we're paying more, and no one's never really explained. When you call the city, they just explain to you the bill, but they don't tell you why. Like every month, for example, my storage charge might be $47 this month. Next month, it might be $50. Then it might be 23. You know what I mean?
It's based on usage, so
Yeah, so
you,
that's consumption. Here's the consumption here. There's 4 categories here.
Right.
My consumption is $40. And so I got 4, I'm not understanding. Is there someone that we can talk to
Yeah,
explain
sure.
the bill, how this works?
Well,
I think
yeah.
we're paying more money.
Okay, we'll talk about it. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Karen Joseph West, and my question is basically for license and inspection.
Gabe.
You indicated that you were going to identify those landlords that are, for the lack of a term, slumlords. Okay, I had one, well, we still have one, next door to my parents' home, who have been living there since 1964. And it came to a point where they, license and inspection came in and boarded up the house because they stated it was inhabited. It is now open and someone else is living there that is just as bad as the people that left. What are you planning on doing for those people that you already have a record on, and what their accountability? Because this person has more than one home, and I've been told that this is consistent with his properties.
All right, so the plan is not just to look at identifying what we want to call slumlords, but to all landlords, right? To hold all landlords accountable by being uniform across the city. Any property that is required, that is a rental property, is required to be registered, is required to be inspected. So the plan is to stay current with the list, to make sure that the properties are being inspected as they're required, right? And we're looking for identifying any deficiencies in the property, and looking to make sure that we rectify them, whether it's through obviously a violation, then civil penalties, and then moving on to even criminal charges, right? When a property becomes vacant, then it's to continue enforcement. Historically, some of the properties that I look at that are vacant, right, because of a fire or because they've been unfit by license and inspection, there's been a lot of hands-off enforcement on these properties, right? So I can talk really that. So a lot of hands-off enforcement. So when we identify a property that's vacant, historically what's happened is we issue them the violations, and then it's just like hands-on. So what I ask is that use the 311 system to make sure that you make the complaints when you see the property, the boards are taken off, and then we continue to go back out there and then be able to put civil penalties, also to put charges on the property. And when those properties get to the point where there's so many nuisance points, then those properties are being addressed by the nuisance team, right? They're being escalated to the law department. We met today, 2 properties that have been historically problems in the city were sent up there, and now we monitor them. We work with Wilmington Police Department, we work with Public Works, we work with everyone that has cause of service for those properties. And so my plan is to make sure that we don't go hands off, right? That we continue the enforcement until the behavior changes, right? For that property and all his properties, but to be fair throughout the city, to make sure that we are inspecting all properties in a timely fashion.
So I can assume that his property is on your radar.
If it's not, you're going to give me the address, and it's going to be on there. 5 minutes, man.
It'll be on the radar tonight.
It's on the radar right now. I just don't know the address yet.
Mayor, we have a question back. Mayor, we have one question back here.
Go ahead.
So early on, you mentioned, the 16-year-old being killed and the need for prevention. And the need for prevention, I want to know, is there plans and systems already in place? Do the system already got a plan for the gun violence prevention? And how do grassroots organizations who are actually already doing the work, foot on land, working with these youth right now, get involved to make sure that these plans and systems stay active?
So I would say 3 things, right? Number 1, there's the Wilmington Police Department that has information about mostly young guys involved in groups and gangs that have been fighting each other on and off. The Attorney General just took down a big bunch, about a year ago, 6 months to a year ago. And so the police department is always...
You say big bunch, I say small bunch, but go ahead.
Let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
So that's one. So it's a law enforcement approach. The second approach is something that we started at the state called Group Violent Intervention, which is an effort to get into these groups and gangs and say, hey, look, this is not going to take you anyplace good. We can help you deal with the problems in your life and get out of this, put the guns down, and follow us, if you will. They've had some pretty good success with that. And then the third thing I would say is groups maybe like yours that are involved with young people, mostly middle school kids that aren't quite involved in these gangs and groups yet, to keep them out of it in the first place. It's a little bit harder because the first 2 are groups that are identified by past actions. Many of them have been arrested before. Most have been arrested before. They're known on social media with all kinds of signs, insignias, and all that kind of thing. And so they're really, if you think about the size of our city, 75,000, you're talking about a couple, 300 or so that are actually actively involved in these groups and gangs that are fighting with one another. And then there's another subgroup outside of that that's at risk, right? And those are the ones that are tougher to get to. But if you think about the city as a whole, it's a very small group. that is kind of messing it up for all the rest of us. And so we've got to do everything we can, both on the law enforcement side and on the prevention side, to kind of stem this. And we've been having some success until recently. Lots of different reasons for that we don't get in here tonight. But that's essentially the approach, and it's a three-pronged approach. The lady with the hat has been, yes, that, your hat. And by the way, I'm going to be around afterwards, so if I don't get to your question, come up. Yeah, I'll be here.
My question is like, some people think it's like really not that important, but in my neighborhood, where I live, there's a city ordinance that says your trash can, your garbage can should be put out Sunday night after 6 o'clock. And it should be put back into your yard before 6 o'clock on Monday. And then, you know, the same thing with the recycle. I see in my neighborhood, people just do not do it. And I have called 311, and one of the responses, okay, license and inspection, Roy. And one of the responses.
Where's Gabe?
One of the responses was, they don't have a code for it. Or that we can't do nothing about that. And I knew that was not the truth. But I was wondering if at some time maybe they could assign somebody to ticket these people who are not putting their trash down, because it looks horrible.
Yeah, here's the way I look at that. You know, like there's some things that the government can do, law enforcement, code enforcement. There are other things that we as a community have to do in a way that's respectful, you know, and... No, go ahead, you're fine.
We have put out, we have neighborhood guidelines, and that is on the neighborhood guideline. We have received things from the city talking about the whole process of what they're supposed to do. We have put it in each person's house, but yet and still, there are many who won't do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have
I hear you.
done anything. We have done everything that we can do.
And the beauty of it is there's so many people, there's so many people like you around the city in every neighborhood that are taking care and responsible for their neighborhood. And again, I feel like it's a few that aren't. And my only kind of approach in doing this 30 years is just persistence and being respectful, right? I wish I had a better answer for you, but my bet is, I know if this lady right here came and told me I better put my can back, I'm putting my can back. You don't think?
But see, I'm thinking at this point, if they get in their pockets, then they don't think twice and not leave them out there.
Yeah.
You gotta get in their pockets.
Okay, that's fair enough, fair enough. Yes?
My question is, and this is for parking enforcement, you have a lot of cars that are actually parking on the sidewalk. They're on the sidewalk and the curb. And we've been waiting, we've been waiting for a long time for parking enforcement or the police department
To come out.
begin to cite these people that are parking on the sidewalk. If you would just get Second District, if you went on 24th Street between Market and Washington, at least Market is west, you would see a large portion of those cars parked on the sidewalk to where people can't walk
Yeah,
down the street.
I'm looking at the chief, we'll take care of that.
Okay, and also, these Amazon trucks, they can tear the sidewalk. They go right up on the sidewalk, and I had my own sidewalk. I didn't look for someone to do it for us. But they cracked my sidewalk, pulling those trucks out.
Yeah.
Is there some way we can deal with it?
Yes.
Thank you, first of all, for coming out tonight, because we really need this. I want to talk about some of the vacant buildings, because we also know that just because it's titled in the Rear Board name,
right? That's why we have a large issue of that. I also want to talk about the tax assessment. We understand that it's going to hurt our senior citizens from remaining in their homes. They can barely afford to pay the taxes now. You're talking about $218,000 for protective gear. Are you talking about military? When he talks about the $218,000 for protective gear for the police officers, are you talking about the same type of gear that the military uses?
No.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, like fire protection
Okay,
gear.
and let's talk about the sewer assessment. You're continuously building new buildings, so everything is feeding off of the old sewer system. Yes, we do acknowledge that we need a newer one, but why is it always on the backs of the people who can least afford it? I'm talking about our senior citizens. We need to keep them in their homes. There is a program for senior citizens to stay in your homes if you're having problems paying your taxes. But yet, we don't have enough personnel from the city coming out to tell our seniors that there is a program for them. So I want to know how you're going to enforce that also. I'm not really concerned about the trash or anything. I'm concerned about the safety in our neighborhoods because I understand that every new pole you put up, there's a camera. So if there's a camera in there, why are we having so much crime? That's my concern. Thank you.
Okay. It's a lot. With respect to the cameras, they're not everywhere, but they are helpful. And I mentioned the license plate reader, also helpful in identifying these bad guys, which are the few people that are messing it up for the rest of us. With respect to the seniors, yes, there is a senior assistance, financial assistance program, and it's undersubscribed, as it turns out, which means there's more money at the end of the year left for people because people haven't come forward to take it. So we'll work on getting the information out, looking at my people about that, so the eligibility there for those seniors.
Hi, I'm Gina Carter, and my son was killed in Wilmington 5 years ago. I really don't need this. I have my own foundation for mothers, so we can get together and try to come up with something different. Now, my thing is, you guys were looking into those continuous cameras. I know about the intermittent cameras because that's how the young man was found guilty for killing my son. That's only because he had the gun in his hand. But a lot of cases go unsolved because they see him, but they can't accuse him. They can't blame him for killing the person. So are we still looking into getting those continuous cameras? The reason why these crimes are not solved is because they're intermittent cameras. You only catch parts of it, then it goes somewhere else. We need the continuous cameras. Now this is going to cost us, but are we willing to pay for that for safety for our children, for our community?
All right. Yes, ma'am. City Councilman at Large Alex Hackett has joined us. Here he is up front.
While construction is beneficial, what are we going to do, to kind of, to let the residents know? There's been many a times where our streets are blocked off, and you're just coming outside figuring out that the streets are blocked off, and they're not in correspondence like with the trash company. So people are coming out. It's been a few times, at least in the second district, that our trash cans are not being taken because there is no communication, I'm assuming, between construction and the city.
Yeah, so the question was about notification for construction. And by the way, we started off the meeting talking about some of these streets that are a mess. Well, when those asphalt plants open up, we're going to start getting contractors out there fixing them up. So what's our answer to the question about how we're going to notify people that we're doing a road in the district, and how do you get the word out with respect to the trash pickup days?
So on our website, we actually have a live real-time travel advice advisory, which identifies everywhere in the city that any type of road construction is going on. So any citizen, any company, anybody who wants to know what's happening as far as construction is concerned, they can go on the travel advisory map and look at your address, and it'll give you a different color line, whether it's a water issue or a Delmarva issue, or it'll tell you exactly what is happening in real time in your community. As far as the trash companies or the trash not knowing, so the different road closures and things like that, our internal sanitation people will definitely come back and get your trash. If not, give me a call, because I will make them come back and pick up your trash. So when the construction is done, we can send a crew once the construction people have left for the evening, and they'll come and get your trash. But I know that all of you are suffering from construction fatigue, and I really apologize. It's been a really long time, but trust me, when this is done, you'll have roads that are smooth, and you won't have to deal with it for another 20 years, I hope. So just hang on for a little longer, and trust me, it'll be worth it in the end.
And last question, do we have to wait for July 1 in order to get basic things like LED lights on stop signs, like actual stop signs between, like on Gordon and Lamont, where it becomes like a danger to children constantly riding their bikes to the area?
So you can put in a 311 request if you have a specific issue that you're looking for. There's also a petition process now that if anybody in the community feels like a traffic study needs to be done and it's a city road, then you can get the petition together, submit it to my traffic department, and we'll hire an engineer to come out and review the whole situation and give us recommendations as to what would be best for that area. Okay?
I won't hold up much time here. I just want to share something with you. I'm a person that has lived in Wilmington for over 40 years. And I have to honestly say, I love this city and I want to see it clean. When you travel other places and you see the beauty out there in Massachusetts or wherever you go, New York in some places because they're cleaning up. I mean, I see it happening in other states. Delaware and Rhode Island are the smallest states there are. There's no excuse why our city looks the way it does other than we need to be involved. You've got to get involved. Coming to these meetings is wonderful. It's sharing information. But the thing that's more important is not just these meetings, but get out in the community. Anybody knows me? I'm out in the community. What I want to share with you right now, and I'm not going to hold you long, is I would love to see more committees formed to work in, first of all, it looks like you're short-staffed. No department, any department you call, you're going to be short-staffed. But I would love to see committees formed to work with homeowners, because we talked about renters, landlords, but let me tell you something, you got some homeowners that need to step up. Yes. I have seen inspectors come through and ride right on past it. I have seen backyards that are atrocious. And again, I think, one, I don't know if it's fear, because you got to put that in, because when you're approaching people, because I remember a gentleman telling me one time he went to someone's house and the guy comes to the door with a gun. And I said, that was just a technique of fearing to stop knocking on my door about my yard. All I can say is I hope to live to see Wilmington, because it's so small, become so beautiful all over, because the mayor is right. This city is beautiful. If you ride through the areas that are not being challenged, and those are areas that are old and been here forever, been forgotten, no funds coming that way, the whole 9 yards. But now we have attention in these areas. And I say, let's step up. You got to get involved, not just complain amongst each other, not just complain at meetings. Don't be afraid to approach folks. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give a quick example. I'm looking out my window, trash man's coming. They have a tendency to leave trash can wherever they want to leave it. Now, I said, okay. I said, excuse me, sir. I said, could you put my trash can back? And he said, you do it yourself. I said, what did you just say? But he said it walking down the street, going to somebody else's yard. He saw me get ready to come out. Guess what he said? Ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because I'm not going to permit you to disrespect me nor my neighborhood. And in the meantime, I want those people to stay involved. We'll always stay involved until God takes the last breath out of his body.
Over $46 million of Delaware's taxes have been sent to mass murder Palestinians. This spending not only violates international law by funding war crimes, it secondarily detracts from resources in our city, resources that can solve problems like the housing crisis. As mayor, you can propose tax changes to city council. I just want to know, how can you assure our taxes benefit our community rather than being spent overseas? So we're $46 million. That's a lot of money that we can use here.
No money goes overseas from the city. It's an easy question.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm just gonna jump in real quick. We have time for one more question tonight. If folks have other questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, there are boxes here in the front, in the back of the room, and one outside on the table. So feel free to leave any comments, suggestions, concerns in those boxes, and we'd be happy to have someone get back to you.
All right, thank you all for coming. Have a great night. God bless you all.